Good afternoon, everyone. This is episode 4 of The Entertainment Room, and joining me today is Jacob Ottaway and Rhiannon Bevan.
Howdy ho.
Hi. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. Our first topics, though, are the sad passings of Keith Flint and Luke Perry, who passed away a few days ago on the same day.
Yeah, Keith Flint, start off with, obviously in The Prodigy, 49 years old when he passed away. He was an Essex lad himself, and, well, the influence he's had on music over, beyond the past 20 years was absolutely astonishing. The Prodigy, songs like Firestarter, his vocals on Firestarter, by no means was Keith Flint, a singer. But the atmosphere he'd create, be it with the words, the way he delivered the words, and just his, amazing bright persona and character and all, the crazy hairstyles, the crazy clothing, it inspired a generation. My dad loved The Prodigy on the same level I loved The Prodigy, but there's about 20, 30 years of age difference in between us. So I think the impact Keith Flint had was, huge, and I think he won't be forgotten.
Yeah, he had a local connection to Essex as well, which is where we're currently based, by the way.
He lives in Essex. He lived in Essex and passed away in his home in Essex. So, he always kept in touch with the county, and you could tell he was an Essex lad.
I mean, I think why we're all feeling the impact so much is that even if his music wasn't for you, he just was the ultimate showman on stage, that presence he had.
I was going to say, I'll never forget, I saw, you see videos of Glastonbury 1997, and, Firestarter, obviously that was just after Firestarter had came out, and, seeing that, for, many thousands of people at Glastonbury, Jesus Christ, it looked, sensational. The other sad passing we've had this week is the actor Luke Perry has passed away at 52 after having a stroke, which is obviously, very, very sad. Shows that, strokes can happen almost to anyone. Popular actor in the United States, Beverly Hills 90210. Riverdale as well. I believe you guys have seen him in Riverdale, and, well, is a talent gone, unfortunately, isn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it was just such a shock because it was like, obviously, his main career happened in the 90s. People grew up with him when he was a young guy, but, it seemed like it was starting again, and it's weird seeing someone I, saw on TV every week, and now you wouldn't have even guessed wasn't unhealthy. Just such a shock, yeah.
Yeah, both of them were just so unexpected.
I was going to say, so it's been a hard start for all supporters, all fans, and obviously thoughts and prayers with fans and family of Keith Flint and Luke Perry.
Yeah, and moving on now, we're going to be talking about film. We've got quite a big topic this week, and that would be the Steven Spielberg versus Netflix fight, the fight no one could have predicted happening.
I mean, this is one that I just think he is absolutely 100% wrong on, because it's just, I mean, the whole Academy qualifications is just an arbitrary, amount of time you have to be in cinemas, and for him to, I mean, it's daft that we even still have that, but for him, the film he's probably referring to, Roma, did meet those qualifications. It's a brilliant film. No one can deny its quality, so just because it, most of the audience would have watched it on Netflix, that doesn't detract from its quality.
And I'm not being funny as well. Alfonso Cuarón, who directed Roma, Spielberg's not that much above him in terms of a director. So if Spielberg's intimidated, it seems, by these films on Netflix, go and make a film on Netflix yourself. Rather than alienating the audiences, embrace them, I'd have to say.
Yeah, just a little bit of background on this. Steven Spielberg, I believe, is a member of the... I don't know whether it's called the panel. Rhiannon, I think you had a more accurate...
I think it's the Academy, and then they also call themselves the Film Committee or something like that. But I think it's just the Academy.
Yeah, he's part of the team of judges for the Oscars, those that decide who wins, and he's put forward the idea that Netflix films shouldn't be featured at the Oscars. He said, I quote, "I don't believe films that are just given token qualifications in a couple of theatres for less than a week should qualify for the Academy Award nomination." And he even suggested that Netflix films be up for an Emmy rather than an Oscar.
I mean, for him to refer to Roma's qualification as a token is pretty insulting to the director, who poured a lot of his heart and soul into that film.
Yeah, and I think he kind of forgets that a lot of films that I think he's saying, I can't remember where I read it, but he said films that are shown for 4 to 6 weeks should be the only ones featured at the Oscars, and I think that narrows down most of this year's or any year's nominations down to at least half the films that are put up, because I don't think he understands this, but a lot of films that will go past the 6-week marks are blockbusters. These are Marvel films. These are films that will get like a mass load of audiences. Films like The Favourite, I don't think Green Book wasn't on for more than 4 weeks or so. It just like cuts out half the winners.
I was going to say it's ironic because these high concept films that would last more than 6 weeks are the type of films that, you know, Spielberg would have worked on. And it's really unfair because some of the best films about at the moment are the independent films and, you know, which aren't made by high concept studios, which won't get recognition. And it may be that these films don't want to make, you know, high concept studio films because maybe it's just not affordable, maybe it's not profitable. So obviously, you know, certain studios might go to Netflix or other streaming platforms with a very good films, put it out there for an audience, say, who can't afford to go to the cinema, who can't, you know, who want to watch it at home. And why should they not be recognised? You know, it's still a film, and I believe it still deserves the same accreditations that these high concept films can get at the Oscars.
Yeah, it's also worth noting the availability of theatres in some countries, and also some people just can't afford to go to the cinema, or they've got kids and they just don't have the time to arrange an outing. So Netflix just comes at so much convenience. And even here in the UK, we sometimes don't get films that are broadcast in America. I know back when I was doing my media studies and I was researching some film releases, Ex Machina only was released in cinemas only for a very short period of time in America. It was never released in the UK. So you get films such as that, which would be just automatically like knocked out from the Oscars.
And I don't think anyone would deny that Ex Machina is a really good film.
Yeah.
I mean, so it would just be needlessly narrowing down the amount of films that qualify, not based on any quality, just this arbitrary standard, which, I mean, how long a film lasts in cinemas, if it gets into cinemas at all, is not a mark of its quality. It's, advertising takes it, mass... how much it appeals to a mass audience, because I mean you get these like niche films like Mother from 2017 2016. That was a very out there film. I personally thought it was brilliant. It wasn't for everyone, but would that be automatically disqualified because it wasn't marketed very well, and therefore was only in cinemas for about 2 weeks where I was. So
yeah, and also there's a theory that the reason why because cinemas went down in like ticket sales for a while, especially during the 90s and the early 2000s due to piracy, and it's just started going back up again, and people reckon this is because going to the cinema is like an outing with your friends, and you and your friends aren't going to go and see, or you and your family aren't going to go and pop in and see Mother, like, take the kids, so it's just like, it's illogical really.
Moving on. X-Men Dark Phoenix, that's in our minds this week. Jess, why don't you tell us why that is?
Oh dear. Basically, the X-Men films were going so well. Days of Future Past was a masterpiece. Logan was another masterpiece.
And
then we had X-Men Days of Future Past. Then we had Apocalypse. Apocalypse was a mess. I personally didn't like it. I know plenty of people also didn't like it. Logan was the very last film that X-Men have that's been released in the X-Men franchise, and it was supposed to be a sign-off to Wolverine because Hugh Jackman's retired from the role now. And I was really hoping they'd just leave the X-Men franchise there, but I kind of knew they wouldn't.
This is Fox we're on about.
Yeah, they just wouldn't leave it on a high note. So they've announced X-Men Dark Phoenix. And get this, one of the most notoriously bad X-Men films is X-Men The Last Stand, which is the third one.
Oh, God, yeah.
Based off the Phoenix saga, which is around the character of Jean Grey, and she gets like possessed by some kind of spirit from space. And yeah, it was notoriously bad, directed by Brett Ratner. And so basically this latest film that they're releasing is more or less a remake of that, on using the new rebooted, sort of not rebooted franchise. It's very confusing, but it's got the same team of writers that were used for The Last Stand, which was a risky move to begin with. And this film, I believe, has had 4 pre-screenings. So if you don't know what pre-screening is, usually they'll hand select a few people from their target audience, and they'll get to see the film like early on and tell them what they liked and what they didn't like about the film, so they can maybe change things before the actual release. It's had 4 of these, and all of them have had bad reactions to it. Some people were laughing at like certain scenes that were supposed to be sad, and yeah, apparently it's a complete mess. The story is the recent trailer that's been released has ruined what seems to be like a major plot point in the film.
Pretty major.
Yeah. If you're one of those people that don't like to watch trailers before you go and see a film, I'd skip 5 minutes into the future on this podcast because we're going to be discussing this. Basically a character is shown to have died in the trailer, and I feel like this seems like something that's like midway in the film also, or is supposed to be like a major reveal, because it's quite a big character as well. It's like a main character, and they've just shown it in the trailers, and I feel like I don't even need to go and see the film.
Maybe this is the bit the audiences were laughing at, and they thought, forget it, let's just show it in the trailer.
I think maybe they were trying to sell it more by saying, hey, this character dies.
I think the only way they could pull it back is if said character dies right at the start of the film.
Yeah.
And then the whole film is about sort of resurrection of said character, but I find that very unlikely.
The Terminator franchise has been doing this for years. It's been spoiling its own film in the trailer. And I remember, I can't remember whether it did it for Terminator 2, but I definitely know they did it for Terminator Salvation. They spoiled like it was the major twist as well halfway through the film. You're supposed to be like gobsmacked, and they put it in the trailer, and then they made the same mistake again for Terminator Genesis, and it's just whoever edits these trailers is not doing a good job.
I mean, I think this just shows that I'm scared this is going to be a case of like Suicide Squad, because what happened there was that you had so much studio input. I mean, you had one edit of the film done by a trailer house, and you had the trailers obviously done by the trailer house, and you had like 2 other edits of the film. My guess here would be that we've got a similar situation where, because the trailer does look really good, it looks brilliant, but I think that's a trailer house doing a very good job, and I think that's them not communicating with whoever's done an edit of the film and accidentally dropping this spoiler.
Yeah, despite all odds, with all the bad pre-screenings and stuff, and having the same writers as probably the worst film in the franchise, I thought the trailer looked quite good. So, yeah, despite the spoiler, I think they did quite a good job of making it look decent.
Problem is, though, as you said, I mean, the story they're working with, the base story, is really cool. The story of Jean Grey is a really interesting one, and I just don't think they're going to get it right again. I mean, having the same writing stuff, I don't know what they expect to do better this time.
Yeah.
I really don't.
But yeah, it's also weird as well, because I think this was Fox's last X-Men film before Marvel can take over with the next lot. So I feel like this is just a final nail in the coffin for this franchise now.
Just as it was about to get out the coffin as well.
Yeah.
So there we go. Moving on now. Metal Gear Solid. Now this is something that I know as a video game, but supposedly there could be some film action coming with this.
Yeah, it's a hugely popular video game franchise. It's directed by Hideo Kojima, who's currently the mastermind behind Death Stranding that's coming out next year.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, but the story is he parted from Konami shortly after doing Metal Gear Solid 5, and I don't think this franchise is going to be carrying on anymore, because obviously he was the mastermind behind it, and so they're doing a film instead. And this film's being directed by Jordan Vogt-Roberts, who did Kong Skull Island, and basically him and Oscar Isaac, who's best known for playing Poe in Star Wars, and also he's in Ex Machina, which we mentioned earlier, and Apocalypse as well. X-Men Apocalypse. They've been exchanging. Basically, Oscar Isaac said he was up for playing the possible role of Snake in the film, and now the director's saying, yeah, the ball's definitely in the court. I'd be up for Oscar Isaac playing Snake. So let's hope this exchange works out.
I mean, I've seen a few naysayers on Twitter, but I think he could easily work. He's a brilliant actor. He's very versatile as well. I mean, he mentioned he was in Ex Machina. I didn't realise he was in it until afterwards, because he just transformed into that role so well.
Yeah, he's one of those actors. He's not a method actor, but he kind of like he reminds me of Gary Oldman, kind of like how he never plays the same role twice.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I could see him doing it. He looks the part, and I definitely think he could act the part as well.
Yeah.
Moving on now to our final section of film news this week, and we're back with Bond again. Obviously, Bond 25 is coming up, Shatterhand, as we like to call it nice and mysteriously. But there's talk of an absolutely brilliant actor being cast as the villain. One of my favourite actors at the moment, you'll know him from the film Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's just stormed all the award ceremonies recently. Rami Malek. Talk of him being the Bond villain. I would dig it so much. I think he'd be absolutely perfect. He's got that defined jaw. He's got the look of a Bond villain, and I think, that will bring in actually a new audience in a way for James Bond, because it's no secret, Bond 25, for goodness sake, it's a long time. And obviously, even kids know who James Bond is, but if you're getting people watching Bohemian Rhapsody and you see, oh, goodness me, Rami Malek, and he's in James Bond, I think that will bring a whole new audience to Bond. So if Malek is cast as said villain, I believe that, they've hit an absolute masterstroke there.
I personally feel like Christian Bale was nabbed of this role.
Oh, he's been robbed, is he?
Jokes aside, we talked about this last week. Shatterhand, well, the Bonds have usually been named after the villain that's being played, and Shatterhand is the alias for Blofeld, who Christoph Waltz played in Spectre. So it was assumed that Christoph Waltz would be returning to play Blofeld, or they would do what they did in the original Bonds, and they would change actor every single time they had Blofeld. So it's a little bit of confusion over whether Rami Malek is playing Blofeld or whether they're going to get in, or whether he's just playing a new character, but who knows?
Either way, I think as well, if you want to get a young actor long term into the Bond series, I think Rami would be very good to do that. I'm kind of disappointed the way that he couldn't be like he might well be a future actual James Bond. I think he'd be great.
Yeah.
But start off somewhere, start off as a villain. I think he'd be perfect.
I think he's perfect for the villain role. And despite these Daniel Craig, James Bonds being kind of like one film's good, the next film's bad, I feel like the one thing they have got right, apart from Quantum of Solace, is that all the villains have been really good. Like even in Spectre, which is a bit of disappointment. Like everyone loved Christoph Waltz. I love Christoph Waltz.
But I do feel with the James Bonds that they really, Daniel Craig needs to hit the nail on the head in this next film.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
We're getting almost too long now with Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
He needs to smash it, this one coming up.
And it's also his last film. And also, not only is his last film, but it's the 25th anniversary of Bond. So, yeah, they've got to nail this.
I mean, I hope he can, because as you say, he's been a bit lackluster, especially in Spectre. Mostly because I think there were creative differences, if I'm remembering correctly. So I hope those can be put aside for his final gig. So
there we go. Daniel Craig and Rami Malek could be under pressure. See what I did there? TV. Leaving Neverland, the Michael Jackson documentary about his famous Neverland resort. Now, there is a documentary on Channel 4 tonight, if you're listening to this on the Wednesday. But there's already been a documentary on HBO over in the United States, and this has caused some huge controversies in terms of ethical standards and things like that. So, obviously, this documentary has basically outlined Michael Jackson as a quite menacing paedophile in a way, with children back at this place. And, people and big figures on social media as well, such as Ethan Klein, H3H3, has said, with this documentary, I'm almost certain there is no way that, Michael Jackson could not have been guilty of such awful crimes. And this is sort of bringing in arguments because now, under the Defamation Act 2013, you can't defame the dead. So you can essentially say whatever you like about Michael Jackson. You don't have to defend it. You don't have to counter-comment. But obviously, because Michael Jackson's not been able to defend himself being dead, lots of people have come to his aid. There's been campaigns. There's been a hashtag on social media, MJ Innocent. They've actually released a big poster with a QR code, which I've got in front of me, which has got very big and quite significant claims arguing that, MJ was not a paedophile, but arguing as well that there should be laws protecting the dead from defamation or slander. And I feel that this could become a bigger issue more and more as time goes on, especially with another episode of the documentary tonight in the UK.
I mean, this is a very difficult topic because obviously in the past there's been people that have died and then been proved to be the people that they were suspected to be when alive.
Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, only after they were dead. And if you put these kind of things in place, you'll get this problem where people wouldn't be able to investigate those kind of things. And also you've got the fact that even if he was alive and these defamation claims were being put forward, the people making this documentary would be protected by public interest because they've got people coming forward and saying this happened and that happened and
Do we feel that said investigations like this one should be left to authorities, or do we feel that these documentary makers should have the freedom to make something as controversial as this?
I think they should have the freedom because Jimmy Savile started with, one person making this claim to the media. So it has to start somewhere. And I get what people are saying, he's dead, he can't defend himself. But, these potential survivors are still alive, and they, if this happened, have to live with it. Everyone should have the opportunity to make these claims. I trust the documentary filmmakers to make it balanced. I mean, it's Channel 4, so I don't think they'd take any risk. And obviously the Michael Jackson estate is huge. I think we're forgetting that he's not completely defenseless, even if he is dead. He has, money left behind. He has family still in the public eye. They will be looking out for his legacy.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing they can do with this is maybe show both sides of the argument, is he or is he not, and just make it as impartial as possible.
And I feel the other thing as well, obviously this documentary that's been in the States was made by HBO. HBO are known for making sort of intense, deep, damning documentaries. I feel that the Channel 4 one may be standing back a bit more. Obviously we'll have to watch that in the next few days and see what happens with that. But if this correlates in a similar way to the HBO one, then it could be very, very interesting. Moving on to an absolutely wonderful show, also made by HBO, Game of Thrones Season 8. Now, before we go any further in this, I just need to explain. I'm currently catching up on Game of Thrones in time for Season 8, so I'm trying to avoid all spoilers. I'm currently at the end of Season 2. If I find any spoilers now, between Season 2 and Season 8, I think I'm going to cry. But the Season 8 trailer's come out, and it is looking immense.
I still can't believe that you've never encountered any spoilers before you started watching it.
I really don't know how. All I know is that Daenerys and Jon cross paths at some point.
Well, yeah, because it's in all the promotional works.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah. Basically, this is quite a funny story as well, because as I was planning the topics for this podcast, like yesterday, I was planning on just bringing up the fact that they've released new posters. Then all of a sudden they dropped the trailer yesterday, which it's great. It's about time as well, because the new series is going to be in a month, and finally they've dropped this the trailer. They've done just as good a job they do every year of the trailers. They don't show too much. They just show all your favourite characters, assuring you they're going to be in this season. And just like a few like teasers and here and there. There's not really much to say without spoiling it for Jacob, so I'm not going to talk about it that much.
The one thing I do know that I will say though is it's promising, I believe, the longest ever battle in film history.
Yeah, well, I think currently the longest battle in the show is I think it's a toss-up between. Actually, no, I think there's 3 episodes in the show where the whole episode revolves around a battle. I think the most expensive of those was Battle of the Bastards, which was in season 6, and I think that's supposed to be the most expensive. I think that was supposed to be the most expensive television episode ever. And apparently this has topped it up. It took them a whole month or so, or I think it might have been 2 weeks just to film this one episode. And if it is the longest battle ever, then it should take up the whole 1 hour episode, because the ones in the past have only been about 40 minutes long.
I was going to say, there's been reports of actual cast and members actually, like fainting and genuinely passing out from the scenes being so long and so intense. This is going to be, by the looks of it, acting at its finest, drama at its finest, and it could be HBO's best ever work, and I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I feel
and also Game of Thrones has officially succeeded in being. This is the most expensive show ever made. They've topped up Friends. Bear in mind, Friends, most of its budget went on the cast, whereas this, most of its budget is obviously going on the production, because it's got one of the most. Actually, no, I think it's got the most impressive production value that I've ever seen in a show. Like what they've done with CGI, and it's just. I feel like it's just as good as any film with its CGI now, which is really impressive for television.
I was going to say the other thing as well. It's been a long time, really, since we've had a show or a film be so gutsy in pushing so much money into such an intense scene. I remember, obviously I wasn't alive, but in the 1980s when the Blues Brothers did the most expensive car chase and car smash-up ever, and everyone was like, my goodness me, how can you do that? And I feel that we're getting a similar sort of thing here. When we see it actually on HBO or in the UK on Sky Atlantic, I feel that it's just going to be leaving audiences in absolute awe, and I think it's going to be sensational.
Yes, and moving on, we have a new trailer for the OA Part 2. If you're unaware of this, the OA is a Netflix show. It was, I think it was broadcast in 2016, if I remember. And basically, it's about a girl who is blind and she goes missing, and when she comes back, she's no longer blind. And that's all I'm gonna leave, really, because it's a really interesting show. I highly recommend it. It's very philosophical, should I say, and it's got quite a few twists and turns. It was really unexpected when you watch the trailer, then when you actually watch the show. And yeah, I just highly recommend it. The trailer that was shown is the second season, and I believe it's due to air on the 22nd of March this year, so not long to go now. And yeah, I highly recommend this show.
Moving on to our next section now, the video game section, the one which our guest absolutely loves. We're going to start off with a game which is going to be really high up in the order at E3. Halo 6, which is otherwise known as Halo Infinite. Now, the reason it's going to be so high up in this order, it has got a new game engine developed by 343, and in the early trailers we didn't see much. It was just a demonstration of the engine rather than the game. It looked absolutely stunning, and I think the gameplay trailer at E3, I think it will blow people's minds.
I think this is easily going to be the one to steal the show at E3. I mean, obviously Sony won't go, so we won't see any, of their last trailers they put out. So judging from what we can see now, this is going to be the one to watch.
Yeah, well, I'm writing an article on this for, if you guys don't know, me, Rhiannon and Jacob are working on a gaming mag for a university project. Probably won't actually be published, but it's online if you want to find it. It's called Hitbox, and it should be on WordPress. Basically, not lots been confirmed for E3. The only two things that have been confirmed is Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt Red and Halo 6. The theory is Halo 6 is going to be announced, and there's rumours that this is going to be the game that's released with Microsoft's new consoles. They're releasing 3 new consoles. I reckon it's going to be next year when they release these consoles. The first one's going to be a very small, arcade-ish kind of console. It's going to be discless. It's not going to have much space, but it's going to be the cheapest option. Then you're going to have the normal option, which will basically be their equivalent of the Xbox One that was released a few years ago. So this is going to be like your regular console with your regular price. Then they're going to release a super duper console, which is going to be the equivalent of the Xbox X. It's going to have a lot more power, a lot more better graphics, and it's going to have a lot more memory. And that's going to be the most expensive option.
I think that is a good decision on their part because, it worked for Nintendo with the 3DS line. And with games as mainstream as they are now, having the cheaper option there is only going to help.
Yeah, and also I think in the end the PlayStation did win on the console wars this year. I reckon that was mainly due to the fact that it's got better exclusives. We had Detroit Become Human, Spider-Man, God of War, Bloodborne. Next year we've got The Last of Us Part 2 and Death Stranding, and I think Ghost of Tsushima, I think it's called, is coming out next year as well. And I think of course you had Last of Us Part 1 that was released on PlayStation. I think that might be it, but there might be a few more. But yeah, it had plenty of exclusives, and I think that's what made it win in the end.
I think with this generation, it almost seemed like if you wanted to stray from the live servicey battle royale types, you had to have a PlayStation or a Switch.
Yeah.
They really missed the mark with this generation, so it's good to see that they're changing their strategy going forward.
Yeah, and also, as most people are aware now, Sony are not turning up to E3. They have said this is due to them wanting to show their stuff creatively, so people thought they were doing their own conference, but they've announced they're not doing their own conference. So the main theory is that they've only got 3 games coming out next year, which is Last of Us Part 2, Death Stranding, and Ghost of Tsushima. We've already seen gameplay for all of these, so they've almost stole the show every year at E3. So I think rather than coming back to E3 with a mediocre show, they want to come back the following year with better games and hopefully the announcement of their new console.
My question for you guys is, do you think this Halo game should release on the One and then re-release on the new console like Grand Theft Autos did? Or do you think they should hold off the game for another year and wait for the new Xbox console? Because bear in mind, we've got 4K generation at the moment. I believe the normal version of the new Xbox and the deluxe one will support 4K. I don't believe the arcade one will. But, considering that in 2 years' time we could have 8K, and Samsung are already releasing an 8K TV, do we feel that Halo might want to hold off and not do what GTA did, or do you think they might do a double release, which could really be good for revenue?
I think there's a really good idea of doing a double release like they did for GTA 5. GTA 5 was the best-selling video game of all time. I think it's even the best-selling medium of all time. So I think it's a good idea, because obviously there's some people that just can't afford to get a new console upon the release, and just I think it's a really good business model to just like release them both on two different consoles.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It would be a good decision to do that. There is a negative side to doing that sometimes, because sometimes it can just feel like you have the inferior version and then the good version. I found this the hard way with Dragon Age Inquisition in 2014, I believe. I got the PS3 version instead of, because I didn't have my PS4 then, and it was just god-awful, not worth it at all. And I think that probably was negative because they had so many of the past-gen ones being returned, and then they didn't even bother doing updates for it in the end. So I would be worried more on the consumer level. But with Halo, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they would assure that, like with GTA, that the past-gen versions are still good.
And then again, consumers like me will probably end up buying both anyway, so that's just win-win for Microsoft. Moving on in video gaming now. Video game gambling, obviously it's always been a bit of an issue, coming up more and more so again and again in 2019. Why?
Okay, so it's been a slow story, this. What got the ball rolling was that in Belgium last year, they officially ruled that putting loot boxes in gaming, and if you don't know what that is what you get in your Overwatches and your Team Fortress 2s, where you buy a box, got random loot in it, and you can get some for free in the game. But Belgium officially ruled that it was gambling and should therefore be subject to gambling restrictions, mainly meaning you can't aim the game at kids. In this country, the ball is rolling now here with a select committee into entertainment ruling, at least investigating the possibility that it could be gambling. And Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Tom Watson, does suspect that these loot boxes are being used as a gateway into turning children into gamblers, which is concerning.
What is the system behind loot boxes for people that aren't aware?
So, the standard case is, now and then the game will give you, instead of like just directly winning loot, say like a costume for your character or a weapon for your character, instead of just unlocking that or just buying that directly, the game will dish it out on a random basis. So you get a box and you don't know what's in it. It's been compared to like football card packs that you'd get as a kid. You don't know what's in there. While it seems innocent on the surface, because there's no monetary value per se attached to the items in there, so that's why the big companies are saying that it isn't gambling, because you're not winning any money back, you're just getting items. Some people feel it ruins the quality of the games because, back in the day, you'd win these in game, you'd get these items, you'd put in cheat codes to get them, back in the day, going back to the PS2 era there. Whereas now it seems like, especially games that you've already paid for, Overwatch for example, that was upon release a 40-50 quid game, and they were asking for more money, £10 a time maybe, for 10 loot boxes.
Yeah,
I feel that the issue is like some things which could be considered loot boxes and some things which couldn't be considered loot boxes. The line between these is very difficult. In FIFA, in every FIFA you get packs where you buy your packs and you get your players and your contracts and your stadiums. Now, if that's considered as gambling, in theory then FIFA goes up from a rated 3 Peggy to a rated 18 Peggy. And I feel that this is always going to be very, very difficult, because I feel that you'll never find a point where it differentiates between like a loot box and a gambling and just a microtransaction. Obviously, this is why the Government Select Committee has been set up to investigate into this. But I feel at the end of the day, and as I've done in my article on the website, the Hitbox website, I've said that it is an issue of self-control, and I feel that actually it should be up to the gamers to self-control, like it is with gambling. No one pushes you through the door into that, Brooks. And obviously I'm aware that addiction can be an issue, but I feel that with video games it's different. I feel that you'd need like completely different legislation altogether. Moving on, so you still listen, we'll go through this one quickly. It's our final video game one, but it's a bit disturbing, and it's disturbed us a bit researching this. So Steam, there's a game on Steam, I won't give you the title, But essentially, this game can be downloaded. It's got an age rating, obviously a very high one, but it can be downloaded, and the aim of the game is basically very bad sexual misdemeanor, shall we say. And Steam are allowing this game to be on there because they say they are not a publisher. They are just a platform, a bit like you could publish something, a bit like you could put like a anti-Semitic or a racist message on Facebook. They're saying it's a bit like that. They can't stop gamers game developers putting X game or Y game on Steam. And well, it's a bit controversial and upsetting, really, isn't it?
But the thing is, Steam, I don't know, Fallout 76, I don't know whether it's Bethesda's own choice to not put it on Steam due to Steam's terms and conditions, whether Steam outright refused to have it on there. But because of the fact that Bethesda are refusing people to get a refund for Fallout 76, it can't be on Steam because Steam's got it's got customer protection. So there obviously is some kind of like guidelines that they can use to prevent stuff like this happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's a brilliant point there. And even the point with Facebook, if you see something racist, you report it. Facebook won't necessarily take, responsibility for it, but they will do something about it. Steam will probably act on this, but I don't think they'd be in any hurry to, because they've adopted an approach of anything goes. And it seems like they view any kind of input of removing games as a form of censorship. Even though if this was any other platform, a platform that doesn't like to call itself a publisher, they would probably if this is a YouTube video advocating for the same things that this game is, it would be removed, without a doubt. It would be reported and removed. I think the question here is, so they almost don't bring a bad name to the entire gaming community, should Steam adopt some kind of quality control in terms of what goes on before it's even gone on?
It is a difficult subject because obviously you've got this game which features sexual abuse, but then you've got games such as GTA which feature murder, and so it's like I feel like it's kind of a thing like, where does the line get drawn if they were to prevent these kind of games coming onto the platform? I
mean, I feel if Microsoft can, there's this problem. I mean, Microsoft, they're just like, obviously they allow GTA to be released. They wouldn't allow whoever, say, E.G, the Human Centipede, to be put on their movie store. The thing is with Steam, I don't see any way, and I might be wrong, I don't see any way that, a 10-year-old, I don't see that there isn't a way that a 10-year-old could go on there, have their parents' card details on there, and buy this game, and that terrifies me. I
mean, you could say that for any kind of violent
that's
game,
the thing,
GTA.
I've been buying GTA since I was 10.
Yeah.
And, that's been obviously quite scary, but this game, and from the graphic nature of what I've heard, being even more so than Grand Theft Auto, I do find that genuinely terrifying.
I guess maybe they could apply some kind of context scenario into it. So GTA isn't just about murdering people. You've got a storyline to it. You've got characters. You've got missions that just don't involve that kind of thing. You can drive around and be a nutcase if you want to just do that. Whereas this game is just other game, it's just entirely based around this kind of topic.
I think it encourages the act. It really glorifies it. With Grand Theft Auto, there's arguments to be had that it may glorify violent acts, but that, like you said, that isn't the objective of the game, whereas in this case it is. And also, if you went around randomly shooting people in GTA, we all know that the police go after you, so there is some form of punishment in the game to make you realise, oh, okay, I can't do this in the real world. But like Jacob was saying, the argument that a kid could just buy this, there is an argument to be had that parents should be taking a look and seeing what their kids are doing. But I think most people come to the conclusion that this game probably ought to not be on Steam.
Yeah. I was going to say, you got the argument that a violent parent can make a violent kid, and obviously kids' minds, can easily be changed. So if they see this, that is what scares me. Moving on finally to our music world. Not too much music news from me this week, as I've compiled it. Obviously Keith Flint was the big story, but BTS, the Korean K-pop band, wow, where have they come from? Journalists will be pulling their hair out trying to find why and how BTS sold out Wembley Stadium, not Wembley Arena, Wembley Stadium, 90,000 seats in the space of 90 minutes. There was 250,000 people in the queue to get tickets for BTS, and that's phenomenal. I don't think I've seen anything as big as this. Even Ed Sheeran wouldn't do that. I want to know where this audience base has come from.
I think the thing is, K-pop's been sneaking up for quite a while. It's come out of the blue as well. It's just kind of slowly risen, and I think because they don't usually come to the UK, I don't think they come to the UK
Not often.
Yeah,
no.
They don't often come to the UK, so I think maybe that's where it's come from, because this is a Well, it's not going to be a once in a lifetime, because they're obviously going to be returning after this. But...
As I say, I will point out, though, this is their only show in the UK this year. They've also sold out the Stade de France, which I know from my football knowledge is huge. It's massive, just as big as Wembley. That's phenomenal. I mean, maybe I'm just out of touch. Maybe I've got no idea, but this rise of K-pop could be something really big for the British music industry, and I think the record labels maybe want to be, jumping on this and maybe actually getting more acts to the UK, just like Queen did their tours of Asia in the United States and took them by storm in the 1970s. Yeah. I feel this could almost be like a reverse of that.
Yeah.
And that is pretty cool. And finally, The National. Now, The National are a band. They're doing a tour this year, they've just announced. They're doing an album this year, they've just announced. My friend Harry Sherwood is trying to make me go and see The National. I might do. But they're also doing a short film, and they're doing a short film with a very, very popular actor. Alicia, I can't pronounce her surname.
Alicia Vikander.
There we go. Now, she starred in many films, including some we've mentioned today, such as...
Ex Machina. She's also been in Tomb Raider, and there's another one, but I can't... She's been in Kong Skull Island, which I mentioned with Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Oh, she's been in many of it, but I can't...
She's been in The Danish Girl.
Yeah,
the
that's
Danish
the one.
Girl, that's another one.
But I was going to say, this, The National are doing a short film with her. No release date for this film yet. Trailer, I believe, is out on Twitter. But this is, once again, showing sort of another new direction for music, in the fact that, it's becoming more and more the case now where you've got a visual medium with the musical medium as well. And I don't just mean music videos. It's really, really cool that The National are doing this short film. I feel, knowing their style, I feel it's going to be very thought-provoking, very artistical. And I feel that actually it's going to be the direction that music goes in now, because obviously you've got The National doing this short film. You've got Muse with their whole story of like cyborg lasers and big visual glasses and massive things like that. Don Broco, they make their music videos. They've got a continuous story. They're made by the same film studio.
30 Seconds to Mars as well is or is not directed by Jared Leto. He uses the alias. God, I can't remember what the alias is. It's based off a Dr. Seuss novel, but yeah.
What if there's just multiple Jared Letos?
Yeah, and then you've got a Wood Kid as well. He directs his own music videos.
Oh, I like to think we're returning to like the 70s of concept albums.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I was going to say, and all the other trends coming back, I think concept albums would be one I would very much welcome.
Yeah.
I believe that is it for this week. And that is it for, this week of our podcast.
Yeah, this was a surprisingly longer episode, even though we initially thought we barely had anything to talk about. Turns out like things just kept on popping up today. So, we thank you for listening. That is episode 4 of the podcast now.
Episode 4 of The Entertainment Room.
We are moving away from SoundCloud now onto YouTube. We're having a bit of podcast musical chairs at the moment, trying to work out what platform to be releasing on. But yeah, we will see you again next week on Wednesday.
Thank you.